Episode 23, Abu Nasr al-Amir Sulaiman. Abu Nasr al-Amir Sulaiman is a forefather of mine who lived and died about 950 years ago. The area in which he lived is now known as Armageddon, Kurdistan. During his life he was the ruler of his people called the Kurds. One of his notable achievements were that he had created and built a religious school in Sisaba, Iraq. He had deeded over all his wealth and possessions to a trust which he especially set up for the maintenance and upkeep of this school. Hereunder follows some extracts from documents which throws more light onto this matter. Extracts from documents. Allah says, "By no means shall ye attain righteousness unless ye give freely of that which ye love. Therefore I bequeathed and gave freely from the wealth of which Allah has given to me, Mesratul Hijra, green pastures, and Mesratul Ziyazamin, black land, which are known by their boundaries, and an inn which is known as the Red Inn, of which the rooms are known, mills within the borders of many lands, and all equipment and contents attached thereto. All these I bequeathed for the school that I created and built in Sisawa. The education of the students at the school shall be free of charge in all respects. This includes their board and lodging. The conditions shall be that the students should read every Thursday in the day and in the evening the Quran after they have done their afternoon prayer in community. They must have a complete reading of the Quran and must pray for the soul of the Prophet on the rosary. They have to read after the evening prayer in community the Suratul Kahf. They should read on a Monday when the sun rises the Surat Yasin and pray together. That the reward of these readings should go to the soul of our Savior the Messenger of Allah, Muhammad, p.b.u.h, and upon the souls of the believers men and women, praying for forgiveness for their souls from Allah. Before every lesson the students must pray for me and my mothers and fathers. I have made it a condition that the teachings of lessons in the school and administration, and the care of the students and of the Quran and the prayer for the soul of the Prophet should all go to the most learned good of my grandchildren, and the children of my grandchildren, and the children of my grandchildren, and if they die out, to the daughters of my daughters. Then if they come to an end, to the most learned pious of intermarriage inside the Kabil or outside the Kabil, and if they come to an end, to the most learned and Allah-fearing of our jinns. I have left all in the hands of Allah. Thanks be to Allah who has led us in the right path, that we have been conducted to do this. We therefore ask Allah to accept what we have put in this world for His sake and seeking for His wishes. May Allah make our last moments for us in this life easy and give us safety on the day of judgment, and keep us away from the unbearable hell by the grace of His Messenger Muhammad, p.b.u.h. Another extract. When a man passes away, his work comes to an end with the exception of three things. 1. Useful and beneficial learning, which would be interpreted to be in the form of putting down into concrete forms, such as writing books and giving the benefit of his learning to his posterity. 2. An upright righteous son. 3. To continually give alms in the path of Allah. A man gets protection from the show of his alms. Alms are nothing but a ransom, a substitute, a sacrifice to his rebellious mistakes. On the day of judgment, Allah will get hold of the guilty by the hair of his head, but He would leave those who carried on in the right path, and who have carried out good deeds and have been looking and seeking Allah's help, and have tried to collect useful instructions and showed pity and had given help to those who have asked and have worked for the benefit of people. I have bequeathed, there and then, freely, without expecting any return, the green land bounded by Harvatsna Road and Sura Road, the stream running from Kurik to Barzan, and the 2 tombs, and also my tomb there at Bashur Sufla and Suradai. The black land bounded by Kalabankat, Zinatir, and Surshura Road, and Haratana, and Bushunfla Cemetery, and Baharamak, Kurdivan, and Holy Lands, and Briu and Balasan. which is bounded by Zayana, Fur, and Hermik Road and Chine and Nasastafi, Cuba, and Sinuabuatadirshire and all the lands at Harar and Hashnova with their surroundings and with the rights which have been explained, to the creation and erection for a school at Sisva which would become a real estate in trust forever according to the canonical law of Islam, truly, rightly to eternity to be in dedication to pious users to be observed and to remain in force to eternity. All the income from the produce of the black lands to go to the person in charge of the instructional and administrative side of the college. The condition is that he should observe all the conditions and claims which has been herewith detailed. The rest of the income divided from the produce of the other lands to be spent on the assiduous students for their necessities which would be in the form of books, clothing, and the boarding and occupation in the college and for repairing. All these I bequeathed for the school which I had created in Sisawa. Clearly from these extracts it can be seen that Abu Nazar al-Amir Suleiman had sacrificed his wealth for the sake of his religion. Know thou, O reader, that these lands are best. I testify to this. Many were the days when I used to stand on a hilltop, gazing over some part of these lands. This hill is situated just before you enter the town of Harrier coming from the direction of Erbil, which is the capital of Iraqian Kurdistan. Every time that I used to gaze over these lands and after my sight had returned to me I would feel awed and humbled in the spirit because of the immensity of it. At the same time I felt proud to be a descendant of this noble soul. I could not fail but thank Allah Almighty in my heart for it. Could not the Mahdi be cast from such a mold should be asked, and the answer would not be wanting. On this Charliza heartily agreed. Before departing from this personality I wish to invoke the Almighty Allah in a prayer on his behalf. I hereby humbly request that all readers, humankind, and jinn who are followers of the one true religion, join me in this invocation. I begin in the name of the most beneficent and compassionate Allah. I send salutations on his messenger Muhammad, on whom be the fullness of peace, O Allah. Bestow your choicest blessing and peace on Al-Amir Suleiman. O Allah, the most merciful of those who show mercy, accept the prayer of Al-Amir Suleiman. Let this trust be for him a protection on the day of reckoning. O Allah, the light of lights. Increase the light of Abu Nazar al-Amir Suleiman on the day when people will be in need of light. O Allah, admit him to the company of the righteous. O Allah, the Exalter, raise him to the highest station which thou have promised to thy favored ones. All praises are due to Allah, for having guided him to establish this trust. All praises is due to Allah, for inspiring Al-Amir Suleiman to make me and all the believers a beneficiary in this trust. Amiri. I am sure you reader will agree that this is a most weighty document. Praise be to Allah. In the centuries to follow, this trust functioned according to the wishes of its founder. Not only did it continue in this vein, but the trust expanded until its tentacles spread into the greater Turkey and other regions. All my forefathers who followed in the footsteps of Abu Nazar, may Allah be pleased with him and with them, deeded over all their wealth and their possessions to swell the coffers of this trust. Praise be to Allah. This trust grew from strength to strength and functioned smoothly for more than 700 years. Around about 150 years ago, evil raised its ugly head. It came in the guise of the British. By this time the Ottoman Empire had become weak. Britain had penetrated and invaded the Muslim lands. Wherever they went they caused dissension and division. The region in which the trust lands were situated was no exception. The British instigated a war between the Arabs and the Kurds. Many people were killed. The holy and learned people of Islam were especially targeted and put to the sword. This all happened during the time of my great-grandfather Syed Abubakr Effendi. Praise be to Allah, Almighty, he managed to escape the slaughter. With a band of Kurds, whom he led, they fled to Turkish Kurdistan and settled in Erzurum. While these events were taking place, an incident happened on a far corner of the globe. It would have such repercussions that it would influence the course of history of my family for the next 150 years. In Britain's far-flung colony of South Africa, its Muslim subjects were arguing and fighting over religious matters. During a visit to the city of Cape Town, an English nobleman Mr. Darubais witnessed an incident of Muslim religious strife. He was so upset by what he saw that he petitioned the Crown for a religious authority to be sent to South Africa. Queen Victoria was favourable to this request. In turn, the British Royal Crown petitioned the Royal Sultanate for a religious teacher to be sent to South Africa to settle the disputes and to teach her Muslim subjects. Queen Victoria's request was favourably accepted. The result was that my great-grandfather was sent out on this holy mission. Abubakr Effendi set foot on the shores of Cape Town, South Africa in the year 1862. His religious jurisdiction stretched from Cape Town to Mozambique. Not only did he come to South Africa as a religious teacher, he was an emissary of Turkey. So after a period of 1,000 years my family was dislodged from their ancestral lands. Was this the end of the trust as far as my family were concerned? Of course not. Abubakr brought all the original documents dealing with the trust lands all the way from Iraqi and Kurdistan with him to South Africa. It remained in his safekeeping until his death, then it was passed into the safekeeping of his wife Tahura, who was my great-grandmother. She kept it under lock and key. When her eldest son Hisham returned to South Africa after a period of study spanning 30 years, she placed it in his capable hands. Hisham in turn passed the documents over to his son Naim. After Naim passed away, the documents fell into the hands of his brother Farid. Farid is my father's cousin. Praise be to Allah, technology had advanced, photocopies were made of the documents, and a set was given to every male member of the family. This happened during my father's generation. Up to date the documents are in their children's possession. Anecdotes about the trust, Waqafal lands. Onwards I will refer to the trust as the Waqaf lands. Since the family had been dispossessed of their ancestral lands, there had always been a hankering to return to their roots. 1. Abu Bakr Effendi. A careful scrutiny of my great-grandfather's actions shows that the Waqaf lands played an important part in his life. According to my grandmother Kulsum, Abu Bakr had divorced his first wife, because she did not want to permit their son Ahmad to be sent overseas from a very young age for a protracted period of study and learning. Before he had married his second wife, he had exacted a promise from her that their firstborn son will have to leave South Africa from a very young age for a long period of study and learning overseas. This second wife was my great-grandmother Tahura. Abu Bakr's wish was carried out because their firstborn son Hisham was sent overseas for study and learning when he was only 3 years old. Hisham returned to South Africa after an absence of 30 years. By this time his father Abu Bakr was dead. He had already passed away 15 years ago. We had learned that Abu Bakr had to flee his homeland. So what was the state of affairs as far as the Waqaf lands were concerned? I will leave this to the imagination of you, dear reader. Suffice it to say, Abu Bakr Effendi did not just leave things to be. Although he was cut off from his roots, he planned ahead. He had sent his son overseas to Turkey for comprehensive study and learning. This could be for no other reason but that he had earmarked him to become the overseer of the Waqaf lands whenever the occasion should avail itself. According to my grandmother Kulsum, may she rest in peace, Abu Bakr divorced his first wife. She did not want their son Ahmad to be sent overseas from a young age for a long period of study and absence from South Africa. Before Abu Bakr married his second wife, she first had to agree that if Allah grants them a son, he would be sent away from her for a long period of time. The second wife was my great-grandmother Tahura. The son was Hisham, who was my grandfather's brother. Hisham was sent away to Turkey for learning and comprehensive study in religious affairs. When he was 3 years old, he returned to South Africa after a period of 30 years. By this time my great-grandfather Abu Bakr had already died. My great-grandfather Abu Bakr Effendi was the overseer of the Waqaf lands. When England caused dissension and he was forced to flee, he must have been very distressed. This is evident when we read the Bayanuddin. This is a book which he had written after he had arrived in South Africa. In it he made a prayer. He wrote, "Subsequently, I presented a copy of this book to the prosperous treasury of the Sunnite Sultanate. It is a gift of an outbending low in its zeal towards His Excellency Suleiman. It is like a puddle of water from which oozes a drop to the Indian Ocean. O God, my Lord, perpetuate unto him the glory and victory and the manifest conquest, fortify the Sultanate, lengthen its existence and make it endure, perish his enemies and extend to him a sword to wreak his revenge. Amen." In this prayer Abu Bakr Effendi is very humble. He says his works is as nothing compared to that of his ancestor Suleiman. Abu Bakr goes on to ask Allah on high to accept his works as a charity for his ancestor Emir Suleiman. Then he asks Allah not to let this school go into oblivion. Abu Bakr knows well that the ultimate aim is not just the destruction of the Waqaf, but that the enemies of Islam wants to destroy the Sultanate itself. He makes an invocation to Allah to lengthen the existence of the Ottoman Empire. He ends off by asking Allah to send somebody to wreak vengeance on behalf of Emir Suleiman on those who had or who wants to destroy this holy institution which he had created, and Allah knows best. Abu Bakr Effendi had written these words nigh onto 140 years ago. What had transpired during this long interval? The Sunnite Sultanate is no more. It had been destroyed in its entirety. At present the Muslim world is no longer regarded as any serious military threat. As far as the Waqaf lands and my family's connection with it are concerned, things did not go so well either. My great-grandfather never returned to his ancestral lands. He did not know if his son Hisham, whom he had sent overseas for learning and training, became the overseer of the Waqaf lands. By the time Hisham had returned to South Africa he had already passed away. A strange happening did take place. This was at the time of his death. Before death visited Abu Bakr Effendi, he had sent for his two remaining sons Mogamad Alahuddin and Omar Jalaluddin to be at his side. His other two sons Hisham and Ahmad and an only daughter Fiyama were in Turkey at the time. Alahuddin was my grandfather. He was only 9, and his brother Omar only 7 years old when this happening took place. Before these two boys were summoned to their father's bedside in Cape Town, they were spending the day at their grandmother's. This is their mother's mother. She was staying in Beltjes Bos, which at present is known as Newlands. The very minute my grandfather and his brother entered the sick room, their father rose to a reclining position in the bed on which he was lying. With his right hand he beckoned them to come nearer. As they approached his bed he took off his turban from his head and with both hands threw it at my grandfather Mogamad Alahuddin. The exact moment Alahuddin caught the turban his father Abu Bakr Effendi had died. In the year of 1992 of my spiritual awakening, I reviewed this incident in a new light. I asked myself, what is the significance of this act? Surely there must be some meaning behind it. Abu Bakr was a religious man. The fact that he had summoned his children to his bedside before he died shows that he must have had a premonition of his death. We know that Abu Bakr felt strongly about the Waqaf lands. This Waqaf being a holy institution and Abu Bakr being a religious man, many times he must have pondered about it. Verily Allah on high, who understands the mysteries, who listens to every suppliant who calls upon him, must have answered Abu Bakr's prayers. This could have taken place in the form of a vision, a dream, or whatever. I say, this act of Abu Bakr of throwing his turban into the hands of his son, my grandfather, should not be taken lightly. Somehow or another it has got something to do with the Waqaf lands. Inshallah, the truth of my words will unfold as the saga continues. Above all else, Allah knows best.